Fox guest Angela McGlowan here is going to debate radio host Santita Jackson about poverty and Obama's legacy. And boy, did she embarrass herself when she said this.
Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan did work with the opposing party in Congress to get things done. I mean, it's the kind of thing you're talking about that Americans want.
Absolutely, and it's the kind of thing that Americans need because we are facing crushing poverty. We've got student loan debt that is crushing. Look, why don't we also take a page from the LBJ playbook? This is the 50th year of his Great Society. Look, and you know what he did do, Angela? He put money into public education at the elementary and secondary school levels. He decided to address, we got Medicare. Come on now. We made a lot of progress, and when we stopped that war on poverty, we started seeing an escalation of poverty again. Let's move back and then move forward.
May I interject, John, dealing with Lincoln and Barack Obama, you do have a slave mentality today. Even though we had the LBJ, Great Society, we have a people enslaved on the government dole, where we have people paying for people to have more kids out of wedlock, paying for more people to go to prison instead of getting a job. So we do have a problem with slavery today, as Lincoln did back in the day, even with LBJ's policies, because you have certain people that
Angela,
want Obama phones, free food stamps, and the whole
Angela, stop it.
You know, I'm amazed that right-wingers continue to parrot that talking point. Because, honestly, when you do that, you're labeling yourself as a blithering idiot that people on the left, we're not even going to fucking pay you any mind. Like, you make everything else that you have to say not legitimate anymore. You delegitimize yourself when you make such a ridiculous point. Because we realize, oh, I get it. You're not thinking. Oh, I get it. You're just trying to parrot, you know, the party line and the furthest right-wing talking points you can find, and you don't care whether or not it sounds convincing. You don't care whether or not it's true or not. All you want to do is be bombastic and make this ridiculous comparison. And how many times have we heard it? This is the old Rush Limbaugh argument that he's been doing since the 1990s. It's the idea that, oh, do you use the government safety net? Well, I guess you're a slave. Oh, yes, you're breeding dependency. That's the problem, and then you're stuck in that situation forever. Really? That's funny. So why is it that most, if not all of these programs have time limits on them? What is that? I can't hear your response. Oh, that's right, because there is no response. You're limited as to how long you can be on social safety net programs. You're also limited in the amount of benefits that you get. And it's also very, very meager. In fact, in the U.S., the amount of money you get from a social safety net program is the lowest in the modern industrial world. All the other nations that are modern have stronger social safety nets. So I guess by their logic, all the modern countries have slavery right now. Because we make sure that poor people get health care. We make sure that people have food so they don't starve in the middle of the street. Like, you know, would make our society basically savage. It would be a barbaric system. We'd look like fucking Neanderthals running around here. But that's what they're arguing for. They want to go back to that time, you know? But I mean, think about that, man. Think about that argument. Oh, have you taken Medicaid? Have you taken Medicare? Have you taken Social Security? Food stamps? Well, I guess you're a slave. What we're talking about here is $1.30 a meal in the case of food stamps to make sure that you can survive and feed your kids. You're going to compare that to slavery? How disrespectful is that to people who are actually in slavery? You know, think about what slavery really was. You had absolutely no freedom. You were property. You had a master. They would whip you. They would rape your family. It's commonplace in the South. And you're comparing people using a program which is very helpful to them to get through hard times, whether it's in cases of unemployment or whether it's people working a full-time job and not making enough money to survive. Like we have over 10 million people in the country right now who work full-time jobs, but they still don't make enough money to live. You're going to compare that, giving a little bit of help to people when they're at their worst? You're going to compare that to slavery? That's the opposite of slavery. Helping somebody when they're at their worst point temporarily and just a little bit, okay? That's the opposite of slavery. That's being a kind, gentle, fair person. And then please spare me, because what are the chances that Angela McGlowan describes herself as a Jesus-loving Christian? Through the fucking roof. I actually don't know what her religious affiliation is, but I'd be willing to bet a good amount of money she likes to pretend that she's a Christian. Because that's what Jesus does too. He pretends like, hey, feeding poor people, feeding kids, helping them out a little bit when they're in hard times. Yes, that's just as bad as slavery. Well, if that's the case, I guess Jesus was for slavery. Because that's what Jesus' entire message was about. He told rich people, sell all your things and follow me. You know, better chance of the camel getting through an eye of a needle than a rich person getting into heaven. Blessed are the poor. I mean, the quotes go on and on about how much he cared about the poor, how much he wanted to help them out. That's what these social safety net programs are for. They've been overwhelmingly successful. They're one of the last few things that we could really be proud of in the United States of America. But what do the right-wingers do? They try to make the left-wing strength a weakness, which is really silly on an issue like this because the analogy you're making is beyond offensive and it's absurd. It's absurd. Anybody, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, unless you drink your own Kool-Aid and date yourself, even conservatives are going to look at that and say, you went too far and you sound like an idiot.